welcome on into another edition of the WyoNation Roundup. I am your host, Chad Smith, and we are here today to talk some Wyoming football. And you can see we have a late arriving co-host plus a guest who's going to be breaking it down with us all. Welcome in Shea and little guy.
Jameson, say hi. No, all right.
Well, he's not having it tonight. That's okay.
He's okay.
Daddy duty's call.
Mommy's here. You want to go see mommy? Well, as you can hear, that's what I sound like when Wyoming loses.
Yeah, that's where he learned it from.
Yeah. So, well, now you know where he gets it from. That's the same I have when Wyoming's losing in sports. So
very good. So welcome on in, everybody. It's been a few weeks since we've had a show. But the main reason that we wanted to talk today is yesterday used to be a big day, right, Shea? But now the whole calendar has changed. The first Wednesday in February used to be a huge, massive college football day, and now it's just a side note in history. But Wyoming did add 4 football players to the roster yesterday. And so now we kind of have an idea with the recently published spring football roster, with the December signings and now these February signings, of where Wyoming stands with the new coming 105 roster rule that has been implemented by the NCAA. So I guess first question for you is just your thoughts in general on this 105-man rule, which it seems I haven't heard a single coach or athletic administrator say a good thing about it, but it's the rule. And so your thoughts on the rule?
I don't know. I'm torn behind it because you love the walk-on program, and especially guys at Wyoming where you have guys like Marcus Epps, who was a walk-on guy and earned his way and go into the NFL. But on the flip side, last year we saw a Wyoming team that didn't want to fight. So maybe this kind of forces a fight a little bit. I'm not sure where they came up to the 105 number, I don't know how they landed on it, because I don't think Wyoming's giving 105 scholarships anyway.
No, doesn't sound like it. So again, the old number was 85 scholarships and then basically unlimited walk-ons. Like there was no roster cap.
Yeah, I guess you can do partial now, so maybe you can kind of retain the walk-on program a little bit with the partial scholarships, but I don't know. I'm torn behind it. It kind of sucks, but I still like it. I think it may help kind of the smaller schools get a maybe more competitive football team, because the bigger schools, and this has gone back to the glory days of Alabama, where they used to have 180 kids on a roster. So maybe it does the talent trickles down to the G5, where Wyoming may land some guys that they normally wouldn't, and I think they've done that already in the past, but maybe this kind of helps a little bit.
And even the FCS, I think, is going to be a huge benefit to this rule, because if you think about it, like said, the power schools, some of these power schools this past season were carrying 140, 150 players, and now they're having to cut 40, 50 guys. That's like half the roster that you can have now. So just think about that trickle down effect. And I've seen a lot of those guys, right? Some of them are going to like D2 schools, JUCOs, stuff like that. So it is going to spread talent around, and so we'll have to see how it plays out, because everybody right now is playing it by ear.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Maybe a little shout out to guys that are no longer on the team because of this, but at least they signed as the wide receiver from Gillette, Kevin. Oh, I don't want to mess up Lafrombre, but he signed with Chadron State. So Chadron State's about to have a stout squad due to some Wyoming guys that just signed with them.
Yeah. Yep. Chadron State, I think they're Division 2, or are they lower than that? Or they are D2?
No.
Yeah. So there you go. So I guess should we just pop up? I have a nice little chart I made based off of the spring roster plus the signees, both winter and then February. And so Wyoming right now is at 120. You don't
Oof.
have to be down to 105 until, I guess, the first week of the season is what I'm hearing, or the first game of your season. But you would imagine that everything's going to be settled during spring ball. You wouldn't want to get to fall camp and not know if you're going to have a place on the team, because then if you don't make it, you're stuck paying for your school and you can't transfer until December, right? Officially.
Yep.
So spring football is going to be where it's going to be. And Wyoming right now needs to trim at least 15 from this set. And then it's been reported that they want to sign 3 to 4 more transfers after spring ball. So if that's the case, they're going to have to cut upwards of 19 to 20 players on the current roster.
Maybe my guess is kickers is going to be one of the positions they're looking at.
Yes, and we'll get into that. So I kind of consolidated this list a little bit, right? Because they had like cornerbacks, for example, and safeties. They had a few guys listed as DBs, and I just kind of shuffled them based on their, I guess, their height and their weight into the cornerback category. So that's why that number is real high. Same thing. They had some nose tackles. I put them at D tackle. I kept the nickel.
All the same.
Actually moved one of the safeties who I read was recruited as a nickel, right? That nickel linebacker type of thing. So there's 3 of them listed. So you can kind of see where we're at. And it just adds a whole new dimension to it, Shea. I guess kind of your thoughts. You've probably seen this where we're having like former NFL head coaches are going to, and former general managers are going to college programs to basically be GMs to kind of run this number. I don't know if you saw our friends, or not so good friends to the south, the Sheep. They hired a former Pittsburgh Steelers GM to kind of do their roster count. And you probably saw just yesterday, it was Ron Rivera, former head coach of the Washington football team, is at Cal. So,
well,
interesting times.
It is. I don't know if you necessarily need a NFL guy. I think Kirby O'Mara. I don't want to. I feel bad if I get his name wrong, but Wyoming's kind of GM.
Yes,
that can sit here and say, "Hey, this is just the reality of it." But that's also up to the coaches. I don't think you really need a GM on it, because it's still coming down to recruiting. It's coming down to relationships. We have 24 offensive linemen. Last year, Wyoming could barely get 7 to get on the field. That were any good, and if I'm an all lineman at Wyoming, I'm probably like, and I was on the team last year. I'm not talking about the incoming guys. I don't think that would be fair to cut an incoming guy's first year.
No.
I think those guys are safe, but guys who were on the team last year and didn't see the field, I hope you have some numbers of coaches, because you could probably drop that, 5 to 10 right there. And the fullback.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's his name. Yep. Colbert. Yep.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's joining the Sheep.
Why do you even want that if he's staying at home? I wouldn't want that in my program. If you're going to be there to help my program, I'd want you there to have a relationship and not living over Zoom.
Sure.
This isn't COVID. At least come for the camps, but you can live somewhere else,
Yeah, I mean, how can you make these decisions if you're not getting eyes on people in person? I agree with that. But to get to what you said in your opening statement about how like Wyoming didn't fight, I think this 105-man roster rule is going to make you fight, because if you're not bringing it every day in practice, you're not going to be on the team. Right?
Yeah.
You might be a scholarship player, but if a walk-on is out competing you every day, there's a good chance you're out the door, and that walk-on's going to, get a partial scholarship and take your roster spot.
I mean, good. I don't, and this doesn't, I feel kind of
Uh-oh, we lost Shea there. Let's see if his internet comes back here. Let's blow him out. And there he is. There he is, folks.
Oh, did I drop out?
You did. You dropped out. I don't know. Who knows what happened?
Okay. No, I don't know where I dropped off, but this is a business now, so
Yeah. Nope, 100%. So, yeah, the first thing that when I look at this roster, 24 offensive linemen. And you're right. Like last year, they could barely find 7 who could play. And they had injuries, of course, right? But that's out of the 15 that you have to get rid of. I mean, you're probably right. It's probably 5 to 10 offensive linemen are the easiest position that you can whack off right there to get to the 105. The safety position too at 11 is probably pretty bloated, and they brought in a lot of new players, right? A lot of transfers there.
coach said he was going to do that.
Yep, and maybe he keeps them. The other thing that jumps out to me, how about the defensive line? I mean, you don't need 22 defensive linemen. That's for sure. That's another number. So I'd imagine that half to 75% of your getting down to 105 is going to come from your O line and your D line, just based off the numbers alone.
Yeah, and it's all about the obviously Tice Westland's not going where at D end, the best defensive end on the team isn't going anywhere. And guys like now we only have one Jaden Williams on the team. Jaden's not going anywhere. But yeah, the other guys, you feel bad for a guy like Sam Sula who tore his Achilles last year. And now you hope he recovered.
Yeah. I mean, if he's not recovered, he's not going to make the team. And that's not, again, nothing to say bad to say about him, but it's just the reality of the situation, right?
Yeah. I guess it's a give and take. Maybe 110 is probably a better number. Where you and I think they should do like the NFL where I don't think they count your specialists.
Yeah. That is also the big question, right? When you're looking at these counts, like right now we have 1 punter and 2 place kickers. Well, I mean, how many times have you heard a team being down to like their 3rd or 4th kicker because of various reasons? So the special teams is really interesting. And I've heard that Wyoming, I think you've told me this perhaps, that really they're looking for a kicker who can do both. And that's what you're going to have to find these days. You're going to have to find kickers who could place kick and punt to take up backup spots.
If I'm Sandvik or Anderson, I'm at some field kicking punts and making sure I'm not missing field goals.
Yeah. So it makes that kicking job even harder because you're going to have to find guys who can do both. And then you add in the lawn snappers. Right now we've got 2 lawn snappers who are pretty much exclusive lawn snappers, right? And then they also, in this defensive end number, is a guy who also is a lawn snapper, but he plays a little defensive end. So pretty interesting. If you're a lawn snapper now, I don't know, unless you're right, probably your starting lawn snapper can just do that. But if you're a backup lawn snapper, you're going to have to provide some value at another position. So yeah, these specialists are really going to be a thing of the past. Maybe they're just going to have to be more well-rounded football players.
Yeah, I don't know. One position that's not on here, not talked about enough, is the kick holder.
Sure.
Who's gonna do that duty?
Which is traditionally, right, a backup quarterback or maybe another kicker sometimes, but usually a quarterback. So right, and so that is the number. It'll be interesting to see when spring comes along, Sauvel's philosophy and number counts and how they really want to balance this out, because right, there's really no right or wrong answer, but you got to get it right, because if you have a string of injuries at a position, you may not have enough depth to cover it, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, Wyoming, if they get light on the defensive tackle, may run back to a 3-4. I don't know if you really have, and they run the 3-3 or the 3-4 a lot anyway. So
Sure, it's multiple fronts. Yeah,
um, it's going to be interesting. And now you have new coaches in the mix, and I think that really changes the dynamic of some of these positions as well.
great point. Yep, new. Is he just a new defensive tackles coach? The guy from Air Force.
Yep.
So that's one of them there. You got 8 running backs coming in, and you got a new running back coach from North Dakota. Those are the 2 big ones, right? Is there one more I'm missing?
Yeah, and then Javon getting
Oh,
promoted,
yeah.
and Mike
And
Grant finally getting.
yep, that's right. Well, I mean, how long and mainly you and I have been banging on about that, so yep, the biggest thing, Javon Bonite, now the sole wide receivers coach at the University of Wyoming.
And hopefully they're not stuck on putting receivers on the field just because they're big.
Yep. So we'll see how that talent evaluation goes on. So a lot of questions, but this is where we're looking at right now. 120, going to have to cut down 15 and then probably more. And guys are going to transfer, right? So again, in this list is a lot of walk-ons who are just going to try to fight for a spot. So I could go through the list again and see how many walk-ons are still a part of this. And you could imagine that, right? 80 to 90% of those guys, unfortunately, probably aren't going to make the team.
I think the kickers are both walk-ons. They were preferred walk-ons, so there's
Yeah.
probably 2,
Yeah. And that changes the equation too, right? Is generally you weren't given scholarships to kickers, but now you're going to have to. So
Well,
you don't have
that was
to, but
Bull's big, yeah.
you
That was
should.
Bull's big thing, and then we ended up with the kicking fiasco of 2015, and then thank God we got Cooper Roth.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Um, So I guess, yeah, any positions you're particularly concerned about, just number count wise or talent wise, just thinking about how things are shaking out here.
I don't know, like the cornerback, Wyoming signed a good cornerback from Snow College, and Wyoming has historically done well at signing Joe cornerbacks.
Okay. Yep. I think that BJ Inman.
So, yep. So good for them there. And a lot of those guys can move down to linebacker as well. So if linebackers aren't producing, maybe you have some bigger safeties that you can. Because Easton Gibbs was a safety and Logan Wilson was a cornerback when he first showed up on campus. Those are my big concerns. I think the offensive line actually is going to be okay. I think they have the guys there, and I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I'd read Alex Taylor's article today about team captains and last year the lack of leadership, and I wanted to highlight that
Yeah.
the team captains were the worst players on the field last
Sure.
year.
Yep.
So that obviously highlighted, I think, problems inside the locker room and on the field, but it is what it is. It's a new season now, and I hope they still do team captains. I think that's even if
Oh,
it's a weekly thing,
yeah.
an honor for the kids to represent themselves and their family. But they truly have to be like leaders. The 2016 team, those team captains were monsters on the field,
Sure.
and that's kind of what you're looking for again. I would say I don't on the defensive line, I think Wyoming is safe. I don't know how they do it, but every year they recruit good defensive linemen, and this is going back to the Glenn days. I just don't know what's behind them. So that's my concern.
Yeah. And so spring ball will be really important. And they did announce yesterday that all spring practices will be open to the media and every Saturday practice will be open to the public. And I'm pretty sure that they said, right, there's going to be no spring game, which is basically because of the roster limit, you can't really have a spring game.
Yeah. And
Which
two
is
and a
the
half
other
hour
debate.
practices on Saturdays.
Okay.
So you make a family event out of it. Go
Yeah,
tailgate.
there you go. So yeah, so a lot of news coming out of that, and then there'll be more to come, I'm sure, as we inch closer. I don't know, did they announce a date for spring ball?
For the
Probably not yet.
date, March 25th, I think it
Oh,
starts.
okay. Gotcha.
Roughly. So about hang on, I got my calendar here. I'll just see if March 25th lines up. On a Tuesday, that makes sense.
Sure. Yep. So
The
we'll
spring
cover
ball.
that more in detail, I'm sure. But I just wanted to get a look at the roster. I know Brian couldn't make it tonight, but he came up with the initial numbers a couple weeks ago. I kind of put my own sheet together to make sure that right with so many moving parts, and our numbers matched. So 120 is the number right now, which is going to constitute at least 15 players leaving at some point, and then probably more if they want to fill in gaps, like you said. Cornerback is going to be probably something they're looking at. I think wide receiver still is what I read that they're
11.
looking at still, if they can bring in a guy who can play, and then they're going to have to bring in, if they can, they got an experience. No, they didn't get a punter, did they? Yeah, that blows my
They
mind.
got
An
the
experienced
kid.
punter is going to be a must, as far as I'm
They
concerned.
got a kid from I know they're high on him. He's from, I think, Windsor, Colorado, or Fort Collins. I know they're high on him, but a lot of this is where kids are going to have to realize, I'm not saying kids, young men are going to have to realize, if you're not doing the work in the off season, it's going to get you.
It's professional sports now, basically.
Yeah, if you're not doing the work
Yeah.
and you're going out there in spring game or fall camp, and we last year's spring game, the punters were having an average of like 30 yards a punt or 24 yards a punt.
Bad.
It's going to get you fired, and there may not be another opportunity for you out there.
Sure. Yeah, because you can't wait around. So it in a lot of ways, it's kind of exciting, like you said, but there's going to be a lot of people who, after this, they may never play football again.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
It
I don't
is.
know.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe egos get in the way, because D2's there's good school. I always watch the D3 playoff games because they're on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fun. The fans think it's fun. So even if kids get cut, I hope they don't give up football. If an opportunity comes, I hope they still continue that.
Yeah, Meat Hook. I don't know. I haven't looked up, but I know there is obviously a spring portal window that will open.
I think it's the last week of April. It's only for a week. It's
Yeah.
like when spring practice. I think it's on the back end of spring practice.
Yeah. I think they try to put it at like the last week you can possibly have spring practices in, so everybody, right? You don't want a kid leaving in the middle of spring ball. So, but we could look that up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be like April 21st or something. It's some random date.
Look that up.
There.
So yeah, so really interesting, and it's just this new world of college football, which is, I think the change is only going to get worse, or more rapid. I did read today there was breaking news, Shea, that I guess the power conferences are getting together to put together a committee to legislate NIL, I guess, and player payments. And I think this is just the steps that I've been predicting for a while, where the power conferences are eventually just going to do their own thing. They don't need the NCAA. They've proven time and time again. I'm shocked, honestly, it hasn't happened yet, that they don't just say, we're just going to do our own thing. We don't need you, because the NCAA is a pretty toothless organization these days.
Yeah, I don't know. I've also, and it's going to happen, like those top 70 teams are going to bail, and then you're going to have like a three-tiered system. But it has been funny watching not only that, but the media deal that the PAC, whatever they're called, is not getting.
Sure. Yep.
The Mountain West is going to probably come out on top on this. And I'm in a group chat with some Colorado State and Utah State, and I was like, hey, you guys just come back. We'll let Boise and San Diego State go think they're better than everybody else, but they're not going to get the money. $5 to $6 million a year is what the Mountain West is going to get, and it's going to be a pay raise over that. What's killing teams like CSU is $8 million a year would be great, but Wazoo can't live on that, so they're going to keep fighting for every penny. So if Wazoo's not getting $15 to $20 million a year, they're screwed. But fun fact, nobody cares. Their media markets suck, and Mountain West has better media markets and a better national brands than the PAC, whatever that was created. So good luck to them. I don't think they're going to get the media deal like this. It's going to end in a merger anyway this year. I think we're going to get merger news before June 1st.
You think so? Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm making
Now,
that bold statement here.
okay, that is pretty bold because I mean, right? There was a lot of reports that saying that hey, they're not going to get anything close to what they want. They're not in conversations with like ESPN and Fox, but I'm sure this is all disinformation and rumors to try to get things driving. But now it's being leaked that oh no, ESPN and Fox are talking to the pack, and don't worry, everything's fine. Is
But
what
they
the
are
report
talking.
said.
But if they're only talking and say, yeah, we'll give you $7 million a year per team, Washington State can't sustain that.
No,
They're $48 million in debt. They cannot sustain it. And I know some people point, well, CSU's in debt. Well, that's in the stadium. So that's a different type of debt. Washington State's just broke.
sure, yeah, and that's
They have no
very
money.
well documented. If you don't know about that, you can research that. Yeah,
So I don't, yeah, they may be talking and they might like the market, but the Mountain West is willing to be like, sure, we'll kick off on a 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We don't care because the hardcore fans will stay up and the degenerates in Vegas will love it because they got something to bet on till 1 a.m.
sure. And then I guess the other thing to think about is, like I said from the beginning, like I never thought they have these dreams that they're going to get, 10, $15 million a year. And as soon as it happened, I go, you're blowing up these like CSU and Boise, you're blowing up a conference. And I'm telling you, you're only going to make maybe $1 to $2 million more a year, if that. Is it worth it? No, it's not going to be worth it. I don't know. Did you saw that? We've talked about this a lot. It was announced with, I guess, all the new schedule releases that CSU and CU will not play each other for the next 4 years. So it's kind of a good thing that Wyoming got on their schedule. And I think that forced, right, with all their uncertainty on like what conference they're going to be in and how many games they're going to play, we got in the door. And right now, CSU will not play CU for at least the next 4 years.
I don't know what the drama is between those two schools. It's good TV and it's good for the Front Range. You guys
Oh,
all
sure.
recruit the same people.
Yeah.
It's Wyoming, CSU, CU, and Air Force recruit the same people. Why would you not play each other every year? Like Wyoming gets CU next year, which is awesome. But that should be a bigger game, and that goes back to maybe Wyoming beating them in basketball and their head coach throwing a hissy fit.
Yeah.
That traveling to Laramie's hard, like Mark Ziegler's complaints from San Diego State, and it's like you're an idiot. You think chartering to Corvallis is any better than chartering to Laramie, Wyoming? It's not.
It's way worse, probably. Yeah.
And football teams have to stay in hotels when they go to Washington State. They have to stay in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
They have to stay next to the Kibbe Dome in a hotel and then drive over because there's not enough hotel rooms.
Yeah.
And for Washington State, so don't, they're like
Can't wait
baseless
for those
comments. Like I
articles
get it.
from the San Diego
Yeah,
State guy when you have
Laramie.
to go to Corvallis and Pullman, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I roast him every chance I get because March 1st, I've been praying.
Blizzard.
Sorry, Keith Kelly, if you ever watch this, but I'm praying for a blizzard in Laramie, Wyoming, March 1st. I want
Yeah.
Ziegler have to drive into blizzard from Denver, Colorado, across I-80. I hope it's 70-mile-an-hour wide out conditions, and they get stuck in Laramie. That's my only hope. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I hope it happens because that guy's an idiot. So,
all right. We'll pop this on before we change schedules here or change topics briefly. But in case you just missed it, this is the current roster breakdown. Wyoming's at 120. These are the different numbers at each position. And so, yeah, a lot to talk about. And then athlete-wise, I don't know what they're going to do with him. He's one of the high school signees. And I have no idea what position he's going to play.
how big is he?
It's yeah, maybe you can look it up. I don't have it offhand, but his name, I think it's Haskell, right? Alex Haswell.
Alex Haswell.
Actually, I may have the link. Oh, I do. Hold on. Alex Haswell is listed at, oh, he's from Sheridan. Did not know that. 6'5", 230.
Tight end. No.
Okay.
He's going to either be a tight end or he's going to build into a tackle. He's going to be like he looks like Frank Crum.
Maybe. Let's
when he first came
see.
on campus.
Yeah, maybe he'll play linebacker, maybe a defensive end, tight end. Who knows? But he's
He's
got
number
some good size.
78. He's number 78 on the roster, so he's gonna be offensive lineman. He's gonna
Maybe.
redshirt 100% this year, but
So there you go. So there's an athlete. So that kind of puts a spanner in things, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting. It'll be nice to have coverage all spring and not hear about players and then they never pan out. You know?
Well, right. I guess that's going to be the big thing with this 105 is, right, if you're not popping, maybe you might get a freshman year to like, okay, he's a freshman. But if you're not like popping as a sophomore, there's not going to be a roster spot for you. Even at Wyoming, we won't be able to afford to do that. You can't. The days of waiting, right, redshirting and then becoming a productive player as a junior, those days are done for the most part.
Unless you have guys in the hopper where Wyoming had just like linebacker after linebacker.
Sure. Unless you have a
You're
conveyor
like,
belt going, but no one's going to have that because of the portal.
yeah.
You're always going to have a need somewhere. So
Yeah,
it's too bad. It's kind of killed what like we think about a college football, right? Is your red shirt, and then maybe you play on special teams for a year, and then you're a backup, and then you become the starter, and then but that kind of formula is out the window.
And maybe it's for the best. Maybe it's for the best for Wyoming because let's look at the team from last year. It was a lot of guys, 6-year guys, and they did not perform.
And I think that had a lot to do with it. The whole 5th and 6th year thing, the COVID year. I think these guys were they didn't care anymore. Maybe not, right? They wouldn't come out and say they care, but think about it. If you're playing college football for 6 years, you're in your 6th year, you're beat up, you're not really care about school much anymore, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of factors those guys went through. So, but I saw it at other schools too. So it wasn't just a Wyoming thing.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Every 6-year guy in like the NCAA was terrible. So
for the most part.
I mean,
all right. So this weekend, I know. Tell everybody what's going on Saturday. I know you're excited.
I am very excited, and I know I have a feeling Sundance is excited. You got Wyoming and UNLV at 2 p.m. Mountain Time in the AA. So what a normal basketball game's 2 hours. And then at 6 p.m. you got Wyoming taking out a top 20 team in West Virginia wrestling. So if you're heading over to Laramie, might as well make the night of it. Grab some food after the basketball game, head over to UNOWYO and check out the team. It looks like the roster set. I thought we were going to see a bigger competition at 174, but it looks like Wyoming's roster sets going forward, minus, knock on wood, hopefully no injuries here the last 3 duels before Big 12s. So
yeah, and the health is not good. I know. I haven't been keeping up on it. I know they had like another 2 pretty big injuries, right? Or am I wrong?
You had the Jory Volk news, which I heard about for a while, and I was like, man, that's terrible. And then Eddie Knightenbach at 184, he's really good. He was hurt in Vegas in December, and he just came back to line up. And Novak,
good.
Yeah, when I watched Novak get hurt in Vegas, I was like, his season's done. I thought he tore his ACL, but he's back and he's wrestling better than ever.
Okay, good.
But check the blog out. I kind of bring it up that Wyoming's won 4 of the last 5 duels. South Dakota State, they look like an all freshman team a little bit, but they've been on the road between their first duel against Western Wyoming and when they came back recently was 76 days on the road. Of travel and competition. So now their last duels, even though Air Force is on the road, every night they're back on their own pillow. So I think that plays big, and they need a good crowd. And if if I know Sundance, I think he probably brings his team over after the game, regardless of the result. I think he's going to force his players to
Oh,
go over
that'd be
there and
cool.
watch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
no, you're
hope he
probably
does
right.
it. I hope. I know the cowgirls I think are out of town, but maybe the volleyball players or some other sports show up. And if you get
Yeah.
4,000 people, because the weather's going to be nice, the crowd in the side the Wyo could be pretty decent, and to take on a top 20 team and beat them, that would go a long way for the guys. And they love having the crowd around. I talked to a few of them. They love having the crowd around. That's for sure. So if you can get over there and support them, get over there and support them. It's not that expensive, and enjoy some local food around the area before you go between them.
Sure. And then, are you planning on doing a blog? I'm sure after this one.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
don't. So the duels all kind of jam up against each other. You have the duel. Sorry, Saturday. You have a duel the 14th and 16th. I may wait just to knock all those duels out at
Okay.
once. But
Gotcha.
if like Ricks takes on Ricks and Nightenbach both have guys above them in the rankings they wrestle. If they pull an upset, I'll probably write about it. I don't know if anybody reads. I don't know if I know the coaches read it. I don't know if
That's
the
good enough.
wrestlers read
If the
it.
coaches are
Yeah.
reading it,
I don't
that's
know if
good enough.
the wrestlers will read it, but I try to write about it so to kind of generate some, a little bit of media coverage. And it's not a knock on Anthony or Alex or Cody.
Yeah.
I know what pays the bills. It's football and basketball, and they got to
Wrestling
cover
doesn't
football
sell.
and basketball. Yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe they'll stay. Maybe we can bully them to stay at the Wyo and
There we
cover
go.
wrestling since they're already going to be down there. So
All right. Yeah. So yeah, check out Shea stuff. I will probably try to get that graphic up on a blog too, just talking about the 120, getting down to the 105 and where I think the cuts can be, like we just talked about. So I'll try to get that up on the blog so people have access to that chart as well. So yeah, it's been a little bit since we had a show, but we kind of needed a break. Going to try to come back soon with Brian to talk some more basketball, kind of in a big picture way, right? Because man, these guys are giving it their all. We just don't have enough horses, and so I'm really interested in Brian's opinion on the way forward for this program and his, I guess, grade of Sundance as a coach, and then kind of what do we need to do to take the next step. And before we just came on the air, I saw some college basketball podcast put out that they think Wyoming is right. This is like the worst they're going to be for a while because of Sundance. So I need to check that out. I'll tweet that out
yeah,
after the show here.
I think you get. I think that if you get some guys to return, because like a Bube and the other guy, like Brian's got a good. I hope we have him on the show, here soon, because he's got a good breakdown. There's a decent core of young guys, which what you need, and I don't think they're going to transfer out. And then you bring in some more experienced guys. Next year, Wyoming could be a pretty dangerous basketball team.
Yeah.
Because they are very well coached. I brought this up. They're well coached. You're like you said, they just don't have the horses to compete with the top 5 teams in the Mountain West.
But they're playing them pretty close in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So very interesting. I don't follow it as closely. I don't have an eye for it. Some would argue I don't have an eye for football, but but yeah, Brian does, and so we'll get him on soon, and we'll talk some basketball, which will be pretty good as we're inching closer to March Madness. So looks like the
And
Mountain
then
West is going to
Brian's
be.
March Madness and my March Madness is different.
That's right, 100%. So, all right,
So,
everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in tonight. Of course, catch the replay on the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. And yeah, be checking out the forums on WyoNation.com for all the great info. The blog is, of course, we know Shea will have a wrestling blog at some point. And then, of course, follow us on Twitter you know where to find us with all the content. So, all right, Shea, well, good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
And we'll be back soon with another roundup. So until then, everybody take care, and we'll catch you later.